Alright everyone, welcome back to another episode of Cleaning and Restoring. In this, hairball from the last episode. In this episode, we will be doing the NES Satellite. Now this thing I'd never heard of. I think this is pretty cool. My friend has this. Like I said, friend Teeohh, he owns like everything that I clean. Link to his channel in the description. This is basically a thing you use to do 4-player on an NES, because it only has 2 controller ports on the console itself. What you do is you plug this into the 2 controller ports, and plugs in like that, and it looks just like the front of the NES. I'm not going to show you because I don't have an NES right next to me. But once you plug that in, it powers up to this, and this is can do 4 players. Now this takes a lot of battery power. If you want to see, I'm not sure what the exact battery number is, but it's 6 9-volt, I think those are, or I'm not even sure what they are, to be honest. But it's 6 large batteries. So I'm going to be cleaning and restoring this. Mainly this part to get the stickers off of the sides and the front. You can see he spent $6 on this, which I think is pretty good actually. But also this half of the satellite is actually pretty dirty, so it needs a good cleaning it, make it look new again. I just did an NES top loader and it looks literally brand new. I'm really happy with it. So I figured, why not just keep with the NES theme that I've been going with for the past how many episodes. So we're going to start with the smaller piece, so let's set this aside. I've already taken this apart because I wasn't sure how it actually came apart. And you can get this black piece of plastic, this gray piece, and this beige piece, and this black piece, all separate from each other. It's pretty cool. Oh wait, so I'm not going to show you unscrewing. But there are 4 screw points. They're regular standard Phillips head screws, so go ahead and take all 4 of those screws out. I've gone ahead and taken all 4 screws out, and this is where it kind of gets weird, but it's not that difficult. You turn it over, and the first piece that comes off is your gray piece. It'll kind of be difficult, but you can lift it off relatively easily. And this is obviously washable. And then you take off your beige piece, which it just lifts off like normal. Slide that off to the side, and then you're left with your black piece, which is usually the most resilient and hard to get out. And you may like hear a snapping noise. Don't worry, you're not breaking it, believe me. I've already taken this out once. There you go. It comes out with a little bit of a struggle, but I got it. And so then you're left with the board on a piece of plastic. Now, the board just lifts off, and the controller ports you're going to actually turn over, and you can push them through. So push them through, the board will come out with them. And you can go ahead and lift this little board out all in one piece. This isn't that dirty. I'll clean it with Q-tips, but I'm not going to bother getting it with heavy-duty air. And then you're left with this little black piece right here, which is obviously washable as well. Now, moving on to the second half of the NES Satellite. This piece is the bigger piece. It's the cooler looking piece in my opinion. But the other piece is pretty cool because it looks like the front of the NES and like the perfect shape. But regardless, that's not what I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about how to take this apart. So you turn it over, and the first thing you should do is take off the battery cover and make sure, please God, make sure there are no batteries in here. None. Even one could give you a really bad shock. So this cover is obviously washable. So then you're left with 6 screws, which is weird because you don't need 6 screws to hold this thing together. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and again, they're all standard Phillips heads, so go ahead and take out all those screws. Alright, I haven't taken one of these apart yet. The last part I took apart like 30 seconds before I recorded the video just to be sure I know how to do it. This thing I've never taken apart before, so bear with me if I come to a bit of a struggle. But I do know that you have to lift up this bottom piece rather than the top piece. So go ahead and lift that up. And it comes apart oddly. But, whoops. So you get this bottom base right here. And this is obviously washable all on its own. So you can take that away. And so this work is kind of odd, I guess is the way to word it. So there's 4 screws right here, and I think this black piece can come off right now, or I stand corrected. I was just kidding. There are 4 screws right here, and I'm going to take them out on camera so I can talk. You can see there's these springs that are sensored to the... They're the springs that go with the batteries. They're the springs that the batteries put the power into, that they can give the power to the thing itself. Do not wash those springs. They will turn into I meant to say rust buckets. They'll turn into rust buckets. I said bust rockets. And whenever they turn into rust buckets, it's not gonna work. You're gonna have a piece of shit. So my thought process right now is can I get them out, or do I have to do a stupid spot cleaning, which I hate, but I'd rather keep this working than do that. Okay, so this board still isn't lifting out, which is a question mark on my mind. There's a piece of plastic holding it in place right here, though. Oh, that's what it was, too. Right here is a little piece of plastic holding it in place. Sometimes, I guess that's kind of difficult. So this lifts out, and you can set it aside for right now. And then you get your black piece off. This is obviously washable as well. So we're going to set that over yonder. So now I got to think here for a minute. These can obviously unplug, I see that, but can I pull the springs out? Because I think I can over here. Yeah, this spring you can just pull out with a little bit of force. It'll slide out of its little hole there, so to speak. Do not wash this, please, God. And what are we left with? We're left with this cockamamie mess. So I can unplug these. These wires can lift up and unplug. Oh, you can just pull the whole thing out like that, just like I did with the other side. Just kind of lift it out. It's kind of hard. I pulled by the wire, which wasn't a good idea, but that's what I did last time, so I'm doing it over here. There you go. There's your board out of here. And can this come off any further? I'm trying to see if I can get this plastic off here, but it doesn't look like I can, which doesn't really suck because that's not visible from the outside, I don't think. So set this aside. This is not washable. However, you can Q-tip it up and air it, whatever you need to do to get it to maybe work better or look better at least. I don't know where I set the board for the other one. Oh, there it is. And then you're left with this piece of plastic, and I'm pretty sure these buttons do not come out. Oh wait, I'm stupid. They come out. So obviously all 4 buttons are completely washable, and they do go in certain spots. However, I'll tell you where they go. I'm just going to look up a picture of one of these to know where they go. So these are all washable along with this last piece of plastic. So let me do a nice little cover of what you can wash, of what you can wash. This you can wash. The bottom half of what I just showed you. All 4 buttons. This little black piece that came off of it, and the battery cover. And for the other thing, you have your 3 face plates, which look like this, and your bottom plate, which looks like this. Everything I just showed you is washable. Anything else that I did not show you is washable, except for the screws. You can wash this if you need to, but I do not. So I'm going to go ahead and wash all this crap, and I will be back with reconstructing it. Okay, at this point in the video, you're probably ready to put your, satellite back together. We're going to start with the smaller half, the part that looks like this, just because it's the same order I did it in. So we're going to start with this piece and take your motherboard, and it works better if you put the controller ports in first, because they're kind of hard to get lined up, and there's not a lot of slack in the wire. So once you get those in, your motherboard will kind of lock in place, not like perfectly, but it will fit into place kind of by itself. Make sure your pieces are 100% dry, bang them on the table, make sure there's no moisture, and then you can take your black piece and put it so that these corners line up like that. It should fit on relatively snug. Take your beige piece, and it locks into place over top of that. And your gray piece, there's tracks on both ends that feed into these little tracks right here. Put that on, and it looks really good. Overall, I'm pretty proud with how this turned out. I managed to get all the stickers off, and it did take a lot of chemicals, but it did come off. So now turn the bad boy over, and there's the 4 screws that you originally had, the 4 Phillips head screws. So go ahead and put those in, and that's basically done. And we're on to the other half of the thing. All right, it's time to put this thing back together. I already put the spring in because it was kind of a pain, and I don't want you guys to see all the challenges I went through. But basically, the spring part goes on this side, and the coil part goes on this side, and you just gotta basically just shove it in. And if it won't go in, I used a screwdriver to kind of jam it down. That's basically all I can tell you to do. So now we're gonna put in the buttons, because I was scared, but I did look back in the video of taking it apart, and I did manage to find which button goes where. So you have one button that has this on the bottom. Crap. You have one button that looks like this on the bottom, and it's a skinnier button than the other ones, because the other ones are longer like this. The skinnier one goes in the middle right here. It's actually a switch. It's not a button. You have 2 buttons that are exactly the same, and they have this on the bottom. And then you have one with a tiny little plastic nub sticking off right there. The one with the plastic nub goes up here in the top, and it goes right there. The nub faces this little corner piece, I guess. The other 2 just go down here, and they can be mixed up because there's nothing special about them. Now that that's there, I feel 100% more confident in myself that I'll be able to put this back together. So next, I'm not sure if we should put the board in or put this little piece of plastic on. Regardless, I'm going to do both, and we'll see which one goes worse. So let's put the board in. And it goes in pretty easy. You may hit resistance because the one that's a switch may be the wrong direction. So this piece that's a switch rather than a button for the controller versus gun. So you need to make sure that you get that facing the right way. And then you get this little plastic tab up here lined up. And now let's see if we can put this plastic piece on, or if I just wasted your guys and my own time. I don't even know how this goes on, to be fully honest with you. Alright, lift it. You can put them in at the same time, basically. You just gotta lift the plastic over the motherboard, which I didn't know. So now that this is roughly in place, and this kind of locks in place, but not very well, I'm going to go ahead and screw this back together while I still have the opportunity. Remember, you have 4 black screws, and they all just go in pretty easily. Whew, the tricky part's over. Everything's locked in place. So now you're going to take these 2 things and kind of drop them in place. And what you do is basically just take them, and this part has to go facing downward like this, I guess. You just got to kind of wedge them back in, and then push them back down. They should center themselves, basically. It's not that hard. So again, this part, I'll point with the screwdriver so it's easier to see. This should be at the bottom, and this end should be at the top. You just kind of push it into its slot. It's kind of hard to line up whenever you already have the board screwed in, but I'd rather have the board screwed in than pulling it across the nation. Line it up. Can we do it? Yeah, there we go. And push it back down in. Make sure your wires are all tucked in, and that there is a cradle for the black wire right there and right here. Just make sure they're tucked out of the way so they don't get caught when you're putting the 2 halves of the thing back together. And speaking of putting the 2 halves of the thing back together, that's exactly what we're going to do now. So we have this piece obviously goes on in one direction. This one, I couldn't figure it out for a second. So it should go on, in theory, easily. And it did, actually. I was kind of nervous for a second because it was hitting on this. So now go ahead and put all 6 of those, the rest of your screws back in, and it basically is done. I got all the screws back in place, and last but certainly not least is to put the battery cover back on. Now these, for some reason, I have a harder time putting this back on than I do taking it apart. There we go. The clips don't always line up down here. So overall, I think this looks pretty good. I mean, it's definitely cleaner than it was. It always gets dirt on the front of it when I'm putting it back together, things like this. There's obviously areas that I couldn't get too clean, like around all these labels. I couldn't use a magic eraser because it would have ripped them right off. But overall, it looks pretty good. So I'm going to give it like a rub down with a basic cleaner. It's called Simple Green. I don't know if you have it everywhere or not. I certainly have it. So I'm going to give it a rub down with that, just like I do at the end of every video behind the scenes, because you don't need to see that. It basically looks the same, but it keeps it from being dust. It keeps it from collecting dust as easily. So that's basically it for this video. So if you liked it, thank you for watching, and please leave a like or subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next episode.